Hello guys, Bingocat here, and I am back today with another operating systems comparison video. So today I'll be comparing Windows XP Professional versus Windows Vista Business, with Windows XP being 32-bit and Windows Vista being 64-bit. So first things first, I want to say if you're watching this video, welcome to 2007! Yes, so this comparison isn't really super necessary anymore because Windows XP support ended in April 2014 and Windows Vista support is going to end next year, so therefore I feel like a comparison now is kind of pointless. But I've always wanted to sit down and compare Windows XP versus Windows Vista since they were released, because this used to be a really big deal. So first of all, Windows XP, a little bit of backstory, was released in late 2001 and was designed to sort of merge the business-oriented Windows NT line with the consumer-based Windows 9X line, like, Windows 95, Windows 98. It was designed to consolidate that into one line of operating systems and to use basically only one kernel base for both business and home-oriented operating systems. Windows Vista, on the other hand, was designed to be a really big update to the Windows line. Not so much, let's say, like kernel-wise or anything like that, but Windows Vista was meant to bring so many new features to Windows, like user interface-wise. They definitely did that, by the way, but because no one could really agree on what Windows Vista was even really supposed to be, development of this operating system took over 5 years since Windows XP was released. Like, originally Windows Vista was called Windows Longhorn, right? And was going to be built off of the Windows XP codebase, I believe. And so Windows Longhorn was conceived in 2002 and 2003 and early 2004 and built on it. And long story short, they kept on adding so many features into Windows Longhorn that was actually meant to be for the next version of Windows after Windows Longhorn, that no one really knew where Windows Longhorn was going. And so they just scraped Windows Longhorn entirely. And they started a completely new version of Windows in 2004, this time based off of the Windows Server 2003 codebase. And so what came from, all that was Windows Vista. And whether Windows Vista was good or bad really depends on who you ask, but Windows XP and Windows Vista, for that matter, was not released to the greatest reception for either operating system, because both operating systems, yes guys, even Windows XP, believe me, I've done my research, but both operating systems were criticized for being rather buggy when they were first released, and being fairly, not as secure as critics would like it to be, and, specs being higher than previous versions of Windows and all that kind of stuff. But 3 service packs have came out for Windows XP since then, and 2 for Windows Vista that have fixed most of the problems. By the way, the minimum requirements for Windows XP, like the bare minimum, is a 233 megahertz Pentium or compatible processor with 64 megabytes of RAM, 1.5 gigabytes of hard disk drive space, and must have a CD-ROM driver compatible, and the display must be a Super VGA, which is an 800 by 600 display resolution, and must include a keyboard and a mouse. While Windows Vista's minimum system requirements, on the other hand, is also an 800 megahertz processor, but unlike Windows XP, which just needed 64 megabytes of RAM to run, Windows Vista needs 512 megabits of RAM. That's almost 10 times as much as Windows XP needed. Also, the minimum graphics card requirement is also Super VGA 800 by 600 resolution. So unlike Windows XP, which just needed 1.5 gigabytes of hard disk drive space, Windows Vista needs 15 gigabytes of free hard disk drive space. That's a 10-time increase in the amount of space that Windows needs just to run, okay? And so Windows Vista, like Windows XP, also needs a CD-ROM drive or compatible. And so yeah, let's go ahead and turn on both. Now, Windows XP should, in theory, boot up faster, because I gave it higher system, because I gave both operating system and the virtual machines the exact same system requirements. And so since Windows XP needs a lot less resources than Windows Vista, it should boot up faster than Windows Vista. And as you guys can see, it did boot up faster. Not by much, but it did boot up faster than Windows Vista. And that is definitely noticeable because a lot of people complained that Vista ran slow, Vista was buggy compared to XP, but that's because the same people were running Windows XP on hardware that was designed for Vista or vice versa. So Windows XP was going to be faster no matter what. So yeah, let's go ahead and log into Windows Vista 2. Alright, so let's just compare the desktops of both operating systems. So Windows XP's desktop here is of a field called Bliss. This is a real field, by the way, that was taken, the picture was taken, I think, in 1996 or 97. I'll actually put a link to the story about this field in the description, but this is a real picture taken by a guy. Alright, so the Windows Vista background, on the other hand, this is obviously computer generated, but I think this is supposed to resemble an aura. And right away, you guys may notice the icons in both operating systems look fairly different from each other. Like, this is the default recycling bin in Windows XP, and I think on Windows XP they had smaller icons than Windows Vista because I think Windows XP was designed for smaller sized monitors. Windows Vista, on the other hand, was designed for slightly larger monitors, I think, than Windows XP, so that's why its icons are bigger by default. But right here, just look at the recycle bins. They look completely different from each other. This sort of resembles more of a real wastebasket in my opinion. This, I don't even know what they tried to do here. But dragging this back, so the default user interface that ships with both operating systems, the default one on Windows XP is called Windows Luna. And the point of Windows Luna was basically just to give it a complete Windows, a different look than was present in Windows 95 through Windows Me, okay? So what was present in Windows 95 through Windows Me? Well, it was this style called the Classic theme. Most of you have probably seen this even if you never used any version of Windows before Windows XP, where that main windows sort of look kind of chromish or so, or like steel or something like that, and the top bar over here is blue. Well, Windows XP wanted to move away from the Windows Classic style because it's old. And so they introduced something called the Windows Luna interface. I actually call it Windows XP style here, but its official name is the Windows Luna interface. And it comes with different colors like olive green, which doesn't look too good in my opinion, or silver, or back, I'm just going to go back to the default blue. And you can also download themes too, like here's the Zune theme. I liked this one because I think it looks the most modern out of all these. Like the black looks kind of modern, I guess, I don't know. But I'm just going to go back to the default one for the purposes of this video. So some people liked this new look of Windows XP because they say that, you know, it was a nice change from Windows 98, Windows 2000. It looks a little bit more modern. A lot of people did not like this look. A lot of people called it, they said that Windows have officially became Fisher-Price-like. They say that this interface, you know, is designed, it's like a toy. Like, the only thing it's good at is basically nothing, or maybe it's good to look at, but as far as real work goes, that this was not a decent interface. But all that aside, this interface brought some nice noticeable improvements, like the new start menu, or it was new for its time, mind you, was nice in Windows XP compared to the traditional start menu. It allowed for more shortcuts to your most used parts of the computer, so yeah, that was a nice change. And so Windows Vista also has a new user interface. This one is probably even more famous than Windows XP's user interface. Vista uses something called the Arrow Glass interface. And what Arrow Glass is famous for, it's famous for these translucency effects that you get behind the window here. Like if I hover this over the Firefox icon, you can still kind of see Firefox through the window, right? And when you think about their interface, by the way, the Windows Arrow interface, it actually makes sense when you think about it because the operating system is called Windows. And you can see through the windows. Get it? Like real windows.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyways, so Microsoft and such others, praised the user interface because, in my opinion, the user interface in Windows Vista looks really pretty. And this was so modern for its time because it was just cool that you could see through like the windows like this, and I don't know, it's just plain cool for its time. This was even advertised as one of the biggest features that upgrade to Windows Vista. But that came with a huge downside. And the downside is that more often than not, computers that existed right around when Windows Vista came out could not run Windows Aero at all because the graphics didn't require it. Like if you bought a PC in 2005, don't expect your computer to be able to handle Windows Aero because Windows Aero was honestly ahead of its time in the graphics department. But yeah, so Windows Vista does not include Windows Luna, which Windows XP had, but something interesting is that it does include the Windows Classic theme. I forget where that is. It's probably under theme. Yeah, it does include the Windows Classic theme that's similar to Windows 2000, Windows 98, etc. So that was there if you wanted to use it. I think most people used Windows Vista actually liked the Aero interface, and so I've never seen too many Vista installations, and for that matter Windows 7 installations where people use the Classic theme. I mainly only ever see people use the Aero theme in Windows Vista and Windows 7 for that matter. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at one of the most important features of pretty much any operating system nowadays, and that is the web browser. So Windows XP came with a web browser called Internet Explorer 6, which is upgradable to Internet Explorer 8, which is what I have right here, right? So this is Internet Explorer 8. It was released in March 2009, and Internet Explorer 8 was kind of decent for its time, but early 2009 was over 7 years ago now, so this obviously really does not display modern web pages that great. Windows Vista, on the other hand, came with a web browser called Internet Explorer 7, which, believe it or not, I actually have in this virtual machine installation. It can run all the way up to Internet Explorer 10. But right here, I have Internet Explorer 7, and here's some proof for you guys. And once again, Internet Explorer 7 was a major step up over Internet Explorer 6, but compared to Firefox, I wouldn't say Internet Explorer 7 was that great. Perhaps the most exciting change of Internet Explorer 7 over Internet Explorer 6 is that IE7 was the first Microsoft web browser to introduce tabbed browsing. Before that, no Microsoft browsers had tabbed browsing, and that was pretty much the main reason people downloaded Firefox before IE7, was to just get tabbed browsing in the web browsers. So, I wouldn't recommend using either of those web browsers anymore. What I do recommend doing is, if you happen to be stuck using one of these operating systems, Chrome doesn't support XP or Vista either, despite the fact that Chrome was originally released for XP and Windows Vista. But you can download a modern version of Firefox onto both operating systems. So I have Firefox 48 running here on both operating systems. For some reason, if you go to Mozilla's website, they make you download Firefox 43, and then you can update to Firefox 48 by clicking on Help, then clicking on About Firefox, and then it will automatically download for you, which is kind of weird, you ask me, but either way, you can get the modern version of Firefox on both operating systems. And as long as you can get the modern version of Firefox, for the most part, you can get the modern internet on both operating systems, okay? So, speaking of modern, updates for Windows XP, Microsoft is not releasing any more updates for Windows XP. If you go into, well, maybe this isn't working, but I believe the last time I checked, you can actually still download Windows updates for Windows XP, like all the updates that were released until April 2014 from Microsoft's website. But you have to have Internet Explorer 8 to do so. If you have any web browser that's below Internet Explorer 8, I now know why this didn't work. I clicked the wrong link.
You are an idiot!
Let me click Microsoft Update. Here we go. you have to have Internet Explorer 8 or higher to download updates on Windows XP, because unfortunately, how checking for updates works on Windows XP is that it goes through Internet Explorer here if you want to do it manually at the very least. Now, Windows Vista, it's a little bit better in the updates department. Like, Microsoft is actually still making updates for Windows Vista, but as of early next year, Microsoft won't be making any more updates for Windows Vista. Windows Vista introduces the actual Windows Update Center that's built into the operating system, and this just makes updates a little bit easier, in my opinion, because it's not tethered to the web browser, which may go out of date like the web browser did here in Windows XP. And so, in Windows XP, by the way, you need at least Windows XP Service Pack 3 to get any kind of modern updates for this. If you don't have Windows XP Service Pack 3, it's virtually impossible to get updates for Windows XP. You'll have to go on the internet and download Windows XP Service Pack 3 on probably a different computer. And Microsoft doesn't even have the links for Service Pack 3 up anymore on their website, so I actually had to install Service Pack 3 on a Service Pack 2 computer before, and I downloaded Service Pack 3 from the website majorgeeks.com, and luckily that still worked, didn't give me any malware or anything like that. And so after that, it was fully possible to actually get patched up to the latest and greatest version of Windows XP. So Windows Vista, yes, support ends next year, but luckily support is still there if you happen to be using Windows Vista. So speaking of security, Windows XP did not come built in with any form of antivirus. It didn't even come built with a built-in firewall at first, but Microsoft, starting with Windows XP Service Pack 2, actually included a built-in firewall into Windows. Windows Vista, on the other hand, does not have a built-in antivirus either. But what you can do you can't do this anymore on Windows XP, but on Windows Vista, you can download a program called Microsoft Security Essentials, which is basically a full-fledged antivirus software from Microsoft, and it will fully protect your PC for you pretty much. Windows XP, you can't download that anymore. You used to be able to download that, but you can't do that anymore. But what you can do is you can download a third-party antivirus program that still supports Windows XP, like Avira still supports Windows XP right here, and that will be more than good enough for your antivirus program for Windows XP. So let's look at built-in programs of both operating systems. So built-in programs, they both relatively come with the same built-in programs. It's just that the built-in programs in Windows Vista is more up-to-date than the ones in Windows XP, obviously. Like Windows Vista comes with a program called Windows Mail, okay? And Windows XP came with a program called Outlook Express, but I can't seem to find it here. Oh, actually, this might be it. Email. Or not. Whatever. Windows XP originally came with a built-in program called Outlook Express, which you could use for email. Windows Vista, on the other hand, comes with a built-in program called Windows Mail, and both mail programs worked really similarly to each other. The Windows Mail app in Windows Vista had a different interface than Outlook Express in Windows XP. That's basically it. They otherwise function pretty much the exact same. Yeah, regarding other built-in apps, Windows Vista actually came included with Movie Maker, Windows Photo Gallery, programs like that. Windows XP did not come with Movie Maker or Photo Gallery or anything like that by default, and neither did Windows 7 for that matter, but for some reason they went ahead and threw it in there in Windows Vista. And so games included on Windows XP and Windows Vista were virtually identical. Now, you don't see any games here because this is a business version of Windows, and the games come disabled by default, but games are here on Windows XP. The only major difference is that pinball in Windows XP for some reason is not included in Windows Vista. Now, I read that the main reason pinball wasn't included in Windows Vista, but they had it in Windows XP, is that no matter how hard they tried, they could not get pinball working with Windows Vista. They tried like weeks or something like that to try and get it to work with Windows Vista, but they couldn't do it. And instead of finding someone who could actually understand the code for Windows Pinball, they just decided to scrape the game entirely. In Windows Vista, they actually added a game called Chess, and it is what it sounds like. It's a chess game, a 3D chess game for that matter. Windows XP did not have any such chess game. Windows Vista also actually came with some pretty useful new programs, like Windows Vista was the first operating system that introduced a proper backup center. Windows Vista allowed you to create a complete backup of your PC, which I find really nice. Windows Vista also allowed you to do a complete restore to your PC, which I also find pretty nice. Windows Vista also includes like a problem reports and solutions center for reporting problems and getting solutions to your problems. And little niceties like that was included in Windows Vista. Something I do like about Windows Vista was this was the first Microsoft operating system to introduce the snipping tool. And the snipping tool is a pretty well-known program now, and it allows you to take a screenshot of your screen by just dragging over part of your screen. And once you take the screenshot, instead of having to paste a picture into Paint or something like that, it will automatically show your screenshot after you take it, which I find nice. And the snipping tool is still extremely commonly used in Windows today. Let's take a look at the File Explorer from both operating systems. So back then, File Explorer was actually known as Windows Explorer in both operating systems. And looking at them, their interface is different, but they function pretty much almost identical to each other. Windows XP had the toolbar up here mainly, and Windows Explorer, where Windows Vista sort of collapsed the toolbar into an organized button here. But you can actually get the toolbar or menu bar back. Windows Vista also eschewed some of the customization that the Windows XP File Explorer had. Like, one of the things I liked about in the Windows XP File Explorer is that you can move the toolbars around. Like, you could have the back buttons above the File button. Windows Vista, they don't allow any such customization. So the thing that they had in Windows Vista that they did not have in Windows XP is right here. This is the Windows Gadget sidebar, and these are Windows Gadgets. And Windows Gadgets are not included in Windows 10 or Windows 8, but they were included in Windows 7. And basically, these allowed you to have little apps on your desktop that could do various things, like tell you the time, or you could write a sticky note here. And they were honestly pretty useful. Or, here's my favorite, a CPU meter. It will tell you how much of your CPU is being used at just a glance. Now, Microsoft removed these gadgets in Windows 8 because they claim that the Windows Gadget platform is insecure. I honestly think it was just a push to get you to use their new live tiles for their Windows 8 apps. That caused them to remove gadgets, but that's just my opinion. So performance-wise, Windows XP and Windows Vista don't really feel that much different for me. Windows XP on most hardware will probably be faster without a doubt, because you're running an operating system that requires less resources versus an operating system that requires more resources. So which one will be faster? Well, the one requiring less resources, of course. As far as gaming on both operating systems goes, you can't run any modern games on either operating systems pretty much anymore, but Windows XP supports up to DirectX 9, right? Well, Windows Vista comes with DirectX 10, so technically you can probably run a little bit more modern games on Windows Vista than on Windows XP, but once again, the differences are far and few. So if I had to choose which operating system I'd like better at the end of the day, I would say neither. But if I had to choose one I liked better, I would say Windows Vista is overall a better operating system, assuming you have the power to run it, which if you've had a computer made since 2008 or so, you definitely have the power to run Windows Vista, because Windows Vista, it just simply does things a lot better. It has better security in the form of like the user account control or stuff like that, and It has a better user interface and a better looking user interface, and just the simple things about its interface I like the fact that you can search your stuff in the start search here, and you can't really do that well in Windows XP. So assuming you have the power to run Windows Vista, I do think Windows Vista is a better operating system. And Windows Vista is a still supported operating system by Microsoft. You have until early next year to use it if you want to before it's unsupported. So points to Windows Vista for that. Windows XP, on the other hand, XP is good for being a fast operating system. Like seriously, you can pretty much run Windows XP faster than on any hardware you can run Windows Vista on, but XP is also a 5-year older operating system than Vista. On XP is good if you want compatibility for a lot of older programs. Like Windows XP, for the most part, runs most programs you can run in the Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows 95 era. Windows Vista can't run those programs as well. Windows XP is also good for a lot of older hardware, like most hardware made before 2006, or Windows Vista runs really, really terribly on that. The user interface included with Windows XP was never that decent, in my opinion. And just the simple things of Windows XP seem like a pain to use compared to modern versions of Windows, like just searching in XP, for example. If you want to search, you can't get your items instantly here like you can get in Windows Vista, right? You have to go through this wizard with the dog here in order to search your files on your computer. And to me, that's just not as efficient as it would be in Windows Vista. So, once again, Vista is good for newer hardware, XP is good for older hardware, and that is my final verdict on both operating systems. So, if you're at this point in the video, I assume you have made it to the end of my operating systems comparison. So, I'm also really excited to tell you guys about Loot Crate. So if you don't know what Loot Crate is, it is this really cool service where at the end of the month, Loot Crate will ship you a bunch of items. So all you have to do, right, is you have to subscribe to the Loot Crate service, right? And at the end of every month, they will put a bunch of cool items in a box and ship it to you. Like they can ship you t-shirts, they can ship you collectibles. Basically, Loot Crate is a geek's paradise. So I will leave a link to Loot Crate in the video description if you guys want to check out Loot Crate. Maybe purchase a Loot Crate subscription. And yeah, guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys like and comment and subscribe. And yeah, see you guys later. Bye!